We want to remind everyone that this is a safe space, so please feel free to express yourself and voice your opinion.
And respect other folks' opinion because we all have one. So with that said, I'm going to pose this question, and this is for everyone. I would like to hear your voice. Discussion question 1. What is your opinion on respect going both ways in an adult-child relationship? Again, what is your opinion with respect going both ways in an adult-child relationship? So anybody just can jump in at any point. Some of you adults, let's hear it. Let's hear what you got to say. Let's be provocative.
I can start off. My opinion on respect going both ways in an adult-child relationship, from a child's perspective, I feel as if a child should be respected, but not as an adult, because most adults, when they do hear, oh, a child deserves respect, do they pay these bills? Do they pay these bills? Do they pay these? I'm not saying we deserve respect in a type of way, oh yeah, I'm an adult now, so you need to respect me as well. No, but like we've gotten emails at Speak Your Truth from parents cussing out their child, calling them out their name, all type of stuff. And I'm like, that's not always okay, because that brings down your child's mental health, that brings down their self-esteem, that brings them down as a person. So when I say respect going both ways in an adult-child relationship, I mean respectful words, respectful actions, not, oh yeah, you want to have respect in this household, I'm gonna give you this phone bill, I'm gonna give you this water bill, that's your respect. I'm not saying that. I just feel as if I should talk to you in a certain manner, I feel as if I should get talked to in a certain manner as well.
All right, Marissa, I hear that. Come on, let me hear back from some of the adults. I know we have our thoughts around this. In the meantime, I have Leah saying, I hope I'm saying that right, Leah, but your parents should always make sure the child feels welcome to talk in their presence, I think is what you meant. A child should always be respected because their voice matters too, but the child should always respect the parents as well. Yes, you're saying it right. Thank you. I'm saying their name right. Thank you. All right, so we have Leah chiming in. Yes.
I agree with Leah, because understand in a home that a child is living in, it's important that they feel welcome, that they feel they're able to voice their opinions. I don't mean say what they want, get away with whatever they want, but I think it's important for a parent to understand, they were a teenager once too. Maybe they didn't act the same, but I'm sure they remember growing up not being heard because you were a kid. But I feel like sometimes parents forget that they went through the same thing, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. So Tristan, what'd you think about that? And while let's get some adults to say something. And while you guys are coming on, I'm going to read what Kayla says. She says, I agree. When parents do call their children or call them out their names, that's also teaching them to treat others that same way. And that's not how you want to raise them. Wow. Wow. So it sounds like, like I said earlier, whatever you're getting at home, you're going to project that outwardly. When you get into society, when you get into the schools. I'm seeing a lot of that. Like I said, I do a lot of youth programs in inner cities throughout the country. And we're seeing this especially post-COVID, because folks, they have all this built up aggression and they didn't have an outlet for so long. So you're seeing a lot of crime, you're seeing a lot of delusion, you're just seeing all kinds of things out there that, not saying it wasn't present before, but it's more prominent and prevalent now. So any of the adults want to chime in, or any of the older youth want to chime in, my 24, 25-year-olds? This is a discussion for everyone.
I'll say something. I think this is an interesting question, and I may be taking us slightly off task here. Just because I recently had a conversation with my niece who's about 14. She has an 18-year-old brother that works in a restaurant, and he works with a coworker who frequently changes their gender pronouns. And so we had a conversation. I used to work in the service industry about just using terms such as ma'am and sir. And my 14-year-old niece had the viewpoint that that's not necessarily something that kids do these days. It's not necessarily a show of respect to people their age because it's kind of like an outdated thing. So I think it's important here to kind of define what you mean by respect, like what respect looks like to you in your age group and to people who are younger than you.
All right, so my young people, did you understand what that was Christina? Thanks, Miss Christina. Do you understand what she's asking?
Like, how do you define respect to you? I think there's a personal way that everyone defines respect or disrespect, and then there's a generational way that people define respect. To my generation, I'm 38 years old. We were raised using terms such as ma'am and sir, and you just spoke that way to people who are older than you. So just, like I said, maybe taking a slightly off task, but I'd be interested in hearing from some of the younger individuals on the call that, how you guys feel about, using terms such as that. Is that like a relevant topic for you guys? Like, is it necessary? Is that a show of respect, or does it feel disrespectful if you don't use those terms? Just wanted to know.
It's not off task or off topic at all. I think this is right where we want to go. So I see Damar with DJ. I see you hand up. You want to go ahead and chime in on that, DJ? You're on mute.
Yeah. To me, being respectful is mostly about being kind. About the, I don't know what to call it, the mannerisms, I guess, about the yes, sir, yes, ma'am. I say with Mr. Russell, I call him Mr. Russell, but he also said he was okay with us calling him Mr. Xavier, his first name, or just Xavier, I believe. Same thing with teachers. If they want me to say Mr. or Miss, then okay. I don't know if that made any sense. But all in all, to me, it's being kind and being okay with someone else's comfortability. I don't know if I said that right, but being okay with what someone else is okay with.
You said it better than I could have said it. So even if it's wrong, it sounded good. I like it. Anybody else want to chime in? I see you looking around, Marissa. I see a hand up. Is that my hand? No, Marissa, your hand's up. Go ahead.
I would like to add on to Damar and say, well, not Damar, Miss Christina, I believe that was her name.
Yeah, Miss Christina.
It's not, I would not say it's outdated to use the terms yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, yes, sir, no, sir, because that's how I was raised. I'm 15. I'm only 15 years old. So the way I was raised was to be respectful to your elders, respectful to the adults, using yes, sir, no, sir, using that. So I wouldn't say any of that is outdated. A lot of people don't use it because they feel as if, oh, why should I respect this person, that person, I don't know them. That's not the case. I'm trying to get that across to a lot of people, that just because you don't know someone doesn't mean you should not respect them. Because if that was the case, I would not have to respect a lot of people that I meet. But because that they are human as well, because I care about their feelings as well, you should always respect somebody, respect their wishes. As you said, if somebody goes by the pronouns she, they, or they, them, he, him, then respect their pronouns, because that's who they identify as. That's how they want to be known. So it's not only respect what you've grown up with, like I just said, being told to acknowledge people as yes, sir, no, sir. It's also respecting everyone else's wishes, respecting how they feel. Yes, if you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, definitely. Shakayla, I'm gonna get to you just a second. Let me chime in from my perspective. Being 43 years old, almost, very close to it. And I would say my perspective is what really changed, or what I saw that changed with the yes sir, no sir, it really came from the top down. It was older people didn't want to feel old anymore. So they was like, child, don't call me miss, don't call me sir, don't call me that, because I'm, I might be old enough to be your mom, but I'm not your mom, whatever. And then back maybe 10, 15 years ago, you notice how even with pastors, I grew up in the church, but you notice how with pastors went from being called Pastor Jones to Pastor Tom, because it was just a shift in, I don't know if it made them feel cool or like Mr. Xavier. For some reason, it seemed like a cooler crowd was saying, well, call me, by my first name, because it made it more personable. But then that's when you straddle the line, because you have a certain group that's saying, I'm doing it for this reason. But then you have another group saying, well, it's disrespectful. So like DJ said, I was clear with saying, okay, she called me Mr. Russell. I said, you can call me Mr. Xavier or Xavier, but you have to be clear with that. But what if she took that and said, well, I call Mr. Xavier, Mr. Xavier or Xavier. And then she went into the next setting and said, all right, Miss Susan, it's really up to how they feel about that. So on the surface, it may appear to be disrespectful, but it almost got to a point where at a certain age or at a certain time, people were trained, or it felt more personable to say it that way. So hopefully you understood me. Shakayla, let's come back to you.
I'm guessing like growing up, my mom always told us like it's different being in the house than it is like being outside, because a lot of people take, certain words, like, say if I was in the house saying something to my mom, then what I would say to my teacher. Back to what you were referring is like, sometimes you'll call somebody, Mr. Xavier, but then I was to go off and say somebody from their first name. Everybody, has their own opinion on how they're taught. That's what my mom always told me, because like, you could be in public and somebody could be like, oh, Miss Morris. And I'd be like, well, most people are like, oh, well, you can call me Shakayla or you can call me Kayla, to abbreviate it. But as in respect, I see it as like, sometimes you shouldn't, like, I would like people, when people get my name wrong, it's fine. Most people, they get it wrong just, based off how it's spelled or how it's pronounced. But based off, by certain things, you shouldn't respect. I mean, it's like, you could pronounce my name wrong, but don't make fun of my name. I think that's where it comes from. Like, from the pronouns and everything, that's fine. But don't, replace my pronouns on purpose, or, if it's on accident, that's fine. But don't do it more than once after I correct you. I think that's where my, like, my respect going both ways starts at. I think like once I let a person know and, I tell them, or I feel comfortable with telling them, or if not, I just distance myself. But in certain situations, I feel as though it's that respect going both ways. I just, let a person know, but not like in a rude manner where I'm like, oh, well, you said that wrong. I just be like, well, I preferably go back as she, her. But then, most people, they're too shy to correct.
All right. Thanks, Shakayla. Thanks for sharing. I'm gonna read Leah's note in the comments, but then Miss Christina, I'm gonna circle back to you to see if some of your questions were answered, or if there's a little bit more that we need to kind of dig in. So Leah's saying, if people are only okay with being called their pronouns like he, she, they, and them, then you should respect that. You should call them what they feel comfortable. I'm getting old, so it's real small to me. What they feel comfortable being called, because in the end, there may be a reason they want to be called that. All right. All right, so Miss Christina, you heard from some of our young people and some of our not so young people. Did we get closer to an answer, or are you just as confused as we were before?
Well, I think I probably left out a part of my concern. I mean, everyone's conversation and discussion was great and spot on. But the issue that I had, in having this conversation with my nephew and this coworker, he didn't know what to do. Like I said, because this, particular coworker changes their pronouns, and it's almost like he just couldn't keep up with what to call this person on this date. And so, it's just like, with that situation, what do you do? Can I just call you by your name? Or, he's not intentionally trying to be disrespectful about it. If he can't keep up with the different pronouns every day. So it's just like, it's something new to consider. I think he probably worked it out amongst himself and that coworker, but it was a perspective that I had never really considered before he came to me with that concern. It's just, again, different times growing up, and it's something new that you have to consider. You like, how do you deal with those situations? You know, if you are serving or doing something like that, and you come up to a patron and you call them the wrong pronoun or something, you know, some people may get offended and feel like you've disrespected them, and others may not. But you know, it's creating, you know, just some additional concerns and issues, just around that arena. So it's
It's
just
been,
interesting to have this conversation.
yeah, it's been a huge movement around that. Ms. Malone, I'm not sure if you're back online and you able to chime in on that, or you have some thoughts around that.
Yeah, can you hear me? Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Am I okay? Okay. So I definitely, love this conversation because again, I have a lot of personally friends and clients that go by different pronouns. And I think it's very important to always just ask. I think people definitely respect that more. And again, I can totally understand if, individuals change their pronouns day by day, or if that happens. But again, it's always good to just ask, just ask the person, hey, what would you prefer to be called? What are your pronouns? Because that shows the respect level that you are at least trying. And again, I even have a lot of younger clients that I see, younger youth that do go by different pronouns, and their parents are really struggling with trying to utilize those pronouns on a regular basis. And sometimes they do forget, sometimes they do mess up. And so I do try to, have the parents understand that, your child really wants you to do this because this is important to them, this is important to their identity. But then I also have to talk to my youth to say, allow your parents to, to try. Yes, they may mess up, but understand that, if they're asking you, if they say like she and you want them to say they, and they say, oh, I'm sorry, I mean they, allow them that space to be able to correct themselves. Because again, it is new, it's different for some people, especially the older generation. So, I think it's really important to ask if you don't know, even if it changes daily, and then also allowing people to try, even if they mess up, and just correct them, and, allow that space for people to grow and learn in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm gonna put these old eyes to work again. I see, Christina, is your hand up or are you clapping? But so Damar, she had to step away, but she said this before she left. She said, speaking on what Mr. Russell said about being more personal, her given name is Damar, but she prefers her to go by her nickname DJ because it feels closer to those around me. It makes her feel closer to those to people around her. And I have also noticed that it makes others feel closer to her as well by using her nickname. And that's kind of where I was going with that, because we went through a phase where folks wanted to be, I'm saying cool, but people want to be more personable, if you will. And that kind of changed a little bit. But now we're in a whole different world with the pronouns. And, it's, I'm not going to say unfortunate, but it is more prevalent where, to Christina's point, you have someone saying one thing today and then the next thing, and it's very difficult to maintain that, especially if that pronoun doesn't necessarily fit what you're looking at. So, and which is an additional layer of what you're dealing with. So, great discussion. My adults, if you can chime in a little bit more, we'll be happy to hear what you got to say and what you're thinking. But we're going to move forward, and I think this discussion was good. Ajane, I think we're going to change it a little bit. We don't have the balance that I thought we would have before. So I think and Marissa, if it's okay with you, we were going to break you guys out into breakout rooms, but I think we're going to keep everybody together and just do the adult question first, and then maybe the youth question second. So I'm going to run through the rules that we had, and then we can all participate. Again, this is going to be a Jamboard exercise, so get ready for that. You guys learned it today, and we're going to put it in practice. But we were going to go in breakout rooms today, and what we were going to discuss was two totally different questions. We was going to pose a question to our adults and get their reaction on that particular question, and was going to pose a question to our young people, get those reactions, those candid reactions, and then come back together and see what the differences were. But since we have we have a lot of adults and maybe some older teens. So we're going to, just instead of breaking out in the breakout rooms, we're going to keep everybody together and just go through each question together. So let's give you the rules, and what we're going to do is modified quite a bit. So forgive me if I stumble a little bit, but we're not doing it 2 groups anymore. We're not going to we're going to do the breakout for 10 minutes or as long as the conversation goes. Each group is going to be asked a question. We're going to be asked that as one group. We will utilize Jamboard for this activity. So whatever your thoughts are, you can anonymously put them on the board and we can talk about them and just explore what your thoughts are. And then we'll have a spokesperson, which we don't need. I'll be the spokesperson to kind of talk about what we're seeing and what we're hearing. So Ajane, if you can share that Jamboard and actually drop the link for everybody can jump on it. So the link is in the chat right now. Go ahead and click on that. And this one should be the Jamboard for our adult question. And this here, if you can read it, it was going to be very provocative. And we want to hear some candid responses to this. So we still want to hear that. So if you're in the Jamboard and you see the questions, feel free to start dropping in your thoughts around this. I'll do mine as well. But the question reads, if your child was to come out to you as gay, lesbian, bisexual, or transsexual, how would you react? So I'll give you guys maybe 2 minutes to wrap your head around that and put your thoughts on the Jamboard here. Again, that question is, if your child was to come out to you and say they're gay, lesbian, bisexual, or somebody move that, put it back, whoever moved that. All right, bisexual, transsexual, how would you react? So feel free to jump on. And our younger people, let's look at the question like this. How do you think your parent would react if you were to come out to them as such? Let's give everybody about 2 minutes to put their thoughts on there. Again, this is anonymous. So if you put a sticky note there, we will have no idea unless you put your name on there. Let's not all jump on it at once. And we'll start discussing it when we have at least 2 or 3 thoughts up there. All right, we got our first one up saying, accepting they would try to adapt a little. So I'm assuming that's from a younger person talking about how their parents would react. All right, we have a second one here saying, I think my parents would accept me as LGBTQ. I don't know if you put that right. That's supposed to be a G, not a Q. Come on now. LGBTQ plus. All right, I have someone saying, since I have came out to my mom previously, she took it very hard, but she eventually came around. Wow, wow.
Mr. Xavier, I'm sorry to jump in, but Miss Tristan, she said in the chat, she said, I would think my parents would have reacted with some confusion, but would still be supportive and love me unconditionally. I think they will have to adapt a lot, especially based off their religious beliefs.
Okay, all right. Thanks, Ms. Malone, for sharing that, and thanks, Marissa, for reading it for me. All right, we got a few coming in. I lost my place. Ajane, if you can go in and make the ones that's really small with a lot of words, if you can make them a little bit bigger for me, so I can read them. And Travis, you there?
Oh, sorry. Yes, I am.
I know you love these Jamboards, so this your time to shine, buddy.
Yeah, I am standing back from it, watching them come in.
Go ahead and take over for me.
Okay. Hold on. I'm actually pulling somebody else into this call. So
okay, cool.
I'm watching these come in.
Cool. People coming in. I'll give them maybe 1 more minute, give you some time to get those folks in, and then we'll start reading them and hopefully have a good conversation around this. And if Jamboard's not working for you, please feel free to drop it in the chat. Marissa, it seems like Kayla just dropped something in there. You want to read that for us? Marissa, are you there? All right, I'll read it. Kayla M is saying M14, and I totally accept the LGBTQ Oh, I'm 14. That's what that means. Because no matter what, we are all human, and somebody mute me. Who mute me? And who you love or who you're attracted to doesn't matter, because we are all the same by being human. Well said, Kayla. Well said. Y'all muted me. Y'all meant to mute Travis. All right, Travis, let me know when you're ready.
I'm actually ready now.
All right, let's go through these. And I'm picking on Travis because this is his thing. He loves this. So Travis, I'm giving his background a little bit. He's in Chicago, and he's a diverse learners teacher for a charter school there. So this is his wheelhouse, and I'm gonna let him bask in this glory. Go ahead, Travis.
So, hey, everybody, how are you? So we're going to just kind of like read out these responses that obviously are coming in from adults and from our young people on this call. We appreciate all the participation. So accepting they would try to adapt a little. I assume that's coming from someone younger in reference to their parent. I would be open to their decision. I would be ready to listen, level, and learn. Okay. So when I hear level, I don't know if level it means see it from their level and learn, but in all, that's a very positive way to approach it. If I was a mother, I'd be supportive because I would want my child to be comfortable around me and not as a judgmental mother. Very good. That's nice.
And Travis, I don't want to cut you off, but if Travis reads yours and you want to chime in further, feel free. Feel free to do that. Elaborate on it.
Yeah, please feel free to come in, interrupt, raise your hand. Me and Mr. Russell will catch it, and you'll have a chance to freely express yourself or elaborate. This says, listen to my child explain the process they have gone through to come to that understanding. One says, I think my parents wouldn't accept me as LGBTQ. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, I'm interested in more feedback. I'm not sure. Very good. I feel as though my mom would accept me for who I am, but I'm not so sure about my father. He's not so accepting. And that can be a very, very difficult position to be in, where you have one parent that is embracing and accepting, and you have another parent that you feel like may reject you. That could put you in a very difficult position because it's affecting not only you, but it's bringing conflict to the household. So I understand that. Since I have come out to my mom, previously she took it very hard, but she eventually came around. Okay, that's nice to know. So it's an ongoing process. I would definitely have a lot of questions, but asking them and communicating with my son or daughter would help me push past that. Plus, I would focus first on the fact that I love them. Okay, very nice. Very nice. And I think that's a lot of parents, especially our moms. Our moms are really big on, I'm not comfortable with it, but this is my child. And because of that bond that we have, let me do my best to push past it, even if they don't react in a way that's so embracing or accepting at first. I will be accepting of it and just want to know how best I can support them. That's excellent. That's excellent. And just a very, very quick side note before I finish the other two. Well, let me finish the other two first. My parent would probably be surprised, but she would support me. And I would like to think I would be accepting. However, I would be concerned. Unfortunately, we still live in a world where the LGBTQ community is bullied and targeted. And that is really huge that I hear from a lot of parents who have been asked this question, who have children who are LGBTQ. Their biggest worry is what would happen to their child. Like what type of hardship would be on their child. And to be honest, that's a broad thing. It doesn't even have to be about sexuality. It can be about anything that they think that would harm their child because their protective instinct kicks in, right? Another thing is that what I'm noticing is, and it looks like it's coming from parents, I would be accepting. And so I see a lot of the words accepting and support. So accepting and support doesn't always equate agreement, right? You may not have a parent or even friends that align with what your choices are, agree with what your choices are, but that doesn't mean that they don't support you, right? Support can show up in many different ways. Love shows up in different ways. So I think it's important for us to understand that acceptance does not always mean 135% agreement. I'm down with you. I'm going to do whatever with you, this, that, and the third. It means I'm here for you when you need me. I'm here for you. My love for you or my caring for you has not changed. I'm here for you. May not fully understand it, may not always agree with it or your choices, but I'm here to support you because the relationship overrides what my agreement with your choices are.
That's good, great observation, Travis. I really appreciate you leading that. There are a few on here, and I'd love to hear some people chime in if they're comfortable enough with sharing. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to read about 3 or 4 of them, and if these are the ones that kind of hit me and I would love to learn more about. If you're within that 3 or 4, feel free to jump in. You don't have to say which you are, which of the 3 or 4 you are, but it was one that said, since I have come out to my mom previously, she took it very hard. But she eventually came around. I'm looking at another one that says, I'm looking for the one that says you would, because you asked about it, with child be comfortable around it. It says something about you, about the level. Which one was that, Travis? Oh, I see it. I would be open to their decision. I would be ready to listen and level and learn. I want to learn more about level. If you feel free to share and feel inclined to share. And then there's one that said my parent would be probably be surprised, but she will support me. And then this last one, I would like to think she will be accepting, however, be concerned about, being targeted or bullied. So if there's any of those or anybody else that's on here that want to chime in and maybe expound or talk a little bit more about this subject, feel free to do so now.
Yeah, I can go. The first one that you did read, that was me. You said, I said, I came out to my mom, and it was hard for her at first because, as someone also stated, because of our religious beliefs. I am Christian, and I'm also a part of the LGBTQ plus community. So when I first came out to my mom, it was very hard for her. It was very hard for us to communicate, we was losing our bond, and she didn't understand where I was coming from because she never sat down, actually had a conversation with me. The only thing she really did was, this is not right. This is not your faith. This is not what you believe in. But eventually, when it came to the point where she saw that my faith in church, the way I moved in church, it never changed. I still believe in God. I still pray. I still listen to the rules that the church gives me. She realized that the sex that I like it defines me, but it doesn't change the religious beliefs. And that's the main problem with her, was that she did not want me to leave the house of prayer. That's the church I go to. She did not want me to leave the house of prayer to go be out with a girl. That's not what she wanted. She wanted me to find somebody that would love me, care for me, and be there for me. And I still listened and followed the ways of the house of prayer.
Yeah. Marissa, and thank you so much for sharing, Marissa. I'm going to chime in right here. Anybody else want to jump in with their sticky, feel free to do it. But I'm going to say personally toward Marissa, when she actually shared this with us in our group over the summer, I applauded how open she was and how willing she was to really express her feelings about love and her feelings about everything that was her sexuality. And then we had a chance to talk a little bit further about that because I did meet your mom, Marissa, and your mom's from, what is it, North Carolina? So that's a different, it's a different thought process down there. And then, me just interacting with your mom when we were at the pop-up shop that you guys had in DC, I didn't feel anything different from the love that I would see from anyone else. So I'm happy that you guys were able to work through that. I'm happy that you're strong enough to, continue to be faithful in your church, continue to grow, like we said earlier with your mom, and be strong enough to even share with us. So thank you so much. I see Leah, you put something in the chat that you want to share. We're gonna hear your voice now, Leah.
Yes.
All right, go ahead.
I said that my parent would probably be surprised because, like, my parent, I don't think that my mom would think that I would be like gay or like bisexual or anything. I would think she will, like, I am straight, but if I was to ever be bisexual or gay or lesbian, I don't think that she would really expect that from me because, like, I'm really girly and, like, I'm just not type to be bisexual, lesbian, but I still support.
All right, good stuff. And I assume that you said your mom would be surprised that was yours. Okay. All right, good stuff. And thanks for sharing. Thanks for jumping
Yes,
up.
that was.
Appreciate that. Any of our adults want to chime in?
Yes. Good evening. So my name is Kiera. I'm the level. I'll be tagged as the one that will listen and learn, because in reality, we have to remember that the way that our kids see this subject matter and the way that we see it as adults are totally different. And the idea is that to level with your child is you want to be able to see what they see and feel what they feel. And as a parent, I want my child also see what I see and feel what I feel. And pretty much that level piece is allowing her to be free and to share and to explain her place and why she's where she is and what she feels. And also my opportunity to get down to her level and look in her eyes and let her know, hey, that's cool. We're going to do this together. So that's why I felt like being, to first listen and then level so she can know where I am and I know where she is. So that comfortable space can be created, because I think it's important. We always, as parents living that old school life, feel like, oh, this is such a terrible thing, but there could be things that are worse. And it's not a terrible thing because our children are listening to their hearts and their minds and doing the things that make them feel good. And I just feel like, we tag this stigma as something negative, and it truly is not. So that's my piece on the level.
All right, and thanks for sharing, and thanks for providing clarity for that. Travis, you got your clarity. Tristan, I actually was, it's funny that I was actually about to come to you for your clinical expertise, but maybe you want to share something else. Ms. Malone.
Yeah, so I definitely, being also a member of the LGBTQ community, and I kind of piggybacking off of Marissa and I believe Leah, if I'm saying that correctly, my mom definitely was very surprised because I am very girly presenting. So I think, my mom was very, kind of taken aback. She's also very religious. So that played a big part in kind of like how she felt about things. And okay, thanks, Leah. Thank you for letting me know. But yeah, so that definitely played a big part. And again, I think a lot of things, at least my personal experience, played off of religion was one piece. Another piece was expectations of my parents and what they saw for me. They saw me, having a husband, and they saw me, having kids, and they think that, okay, well, how are you going to have children now? Or how are you going to do this? Or how are you going to do that? And I think, the expectation piece played a big role from my parents as well, from what they envisioned for my life versus what I envisioned for my life and what I wanted to see. And then also, I think boundaries was a big thing that I'm still working on even now, at the age of 33, being able to create certain boundaries. Because again, my parents do love me, they definitely try to support me in certain ways. But again, they're still not super comfortable with my lifestyle and how I identify. And that's okay. I mean, at the end of the day, again, I think Travis made a good point about support doesn't necessarily mean agreement, or acceptance doesn't mean agreement. I think that was an awesome point, because again, that can look very different in every family. So I think, being in a space where I have been able to set certain boundaries with my family and still be respectful of my partner, and being able to make sure that those things exist, have been really helpful just in my personal life with my parents and with my partner. And I definitely have been able to grow in a big way. Like after I came out, I mean, it was definitely tough. And again, there's still things that I'm dealing with now. But again, I think, like kind of that piece of eventually coming around that someone mentioned, I think my parents are in that process right now, and they're learning to adapt, and they're asking questions, which I think is really good. And it shows me that you do care, like you want to learn, you want to understand, which I appreciate, and I respect everyone's opinion on it. We come from different times, different beliefs about things, and I get that. But I think the important piece is, again, being able to kind of ask some questions, set some boundaries. Doing those things are very important. If you have a family that doesn't necessarily, support you, or, provide you with kind of the things that you were maybe thinking or hoping to receive from them once you come out.
Wow. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing and giving us that true insight of who you are. And it's a very good conversation going around. And like you said, you mentioned something that Travis said resonated with me as well, the accepting piece. And that's no matter what you're dealing with, no matter what you're going through and where you are in your journey, that acceptance is so, being tolerated and accepted is it's different, totally different, and it feels different. So to be accepted for who you are, who you love, and whatever is going through. So I'm happy that you were able to share that. I want to move on to the second question, but I want to create space for anybody else that might want to chime in with this. So got a couple of seconds if you want to chime in. If not, we're going to move into the question that we were going to put into the youth breakout. So Ajane, can you pull that up for us? Now this one here, you're going to drop the link in the chat again for everybody's. Now this one here was geared toward, again, our youth. So our adults, you can give your perspective. Maybe you give this perspective. When you were younger, when you were a teen, what was that one thing that you just was scared to tell you or afraid to tell your parent or your guardian, or you really didn't know how they would accept it? Whether it was a new boyfriend or girlfriend, whether it's something that you kind of got caught up and mixed up in when you were younger. If you don't mind, just kind of share that with us. The paper's not long enough for my list, so I'm gonna refrain from putting my stuff out there because we ain't got enough time or paper for that. But in our youth, if there's anything out there that's kind of lingering now, or something that you're dealing with now that you're afraid to tell your parent or guardian, what would that be? Safe space, what would that be? We'll give you 2 minutes to drop that in. Travis, I really appreciate you jumping in, man. You're on mute.
It's no problem. And we have a few other people from Chicago who's here. And
all right.
Put them up.
Step up, Chicago. Let me hear from you.
Good evening,
Got quite a few
everyone.
cities on here. What you say, Chanel?
Good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
I am wonderful, and yourself?
I am doing well. Thank you so much for joining us.
No problem. It's wonderful to be here.
Glad. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with Jamboard. We gave a little tutorial. It'll take me all of 30 seconds to share that with you.
Okay.
If you see the link that Ajane has shared, you can click on the link, and you should see the same thing that you see on the screen now. There's a little menu on the left-hand side. You can click on the one that's under the arrow, which will be a sticky note, and just type in whatever you're thinking. It's totally anonymous. We won't know who you are and what you said unless you put your name on there. So if you're so inclined to do that, feel free, or just be part of the conversation.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And you Chicago?
Yes, I am, all day long.
All right. All right, Travis, we got a few coming in.
Mr. Russell, that's one of my, if not my star parents. So
Oh, she up there with you. All right. So yeah, she gotta be pretty strong to be up there messing around with you. No shade, no shade, no shade.
Don't let him do that to me.
Hey, I gotta be pretty strong. Messing around with you. We got some good stuff coming in. So we give them maybe 30 more seconds to see what these things are. Because if anybody lived like I lived, I had to kind of rack my brain and figure out which one I want to share. And my experience was totally different because, like I mentioned earlier, me and my mother, we kind of grew up like brother, sister. So it wasn't so much my mom, but it was my grandparents that, you know, I was definitely afraid of telling them some of the stuff I was into. So Travis, you want to lead this one as well? With your mind, sir?
Yep, I'm on mute.
All right, be ready when you are.
So is that it? We are done, or okay, we have
Got a few more coming in.
So if you are still putting some in, you're more than welcome to continue to put some in as we get started, okay? So I have one that says, I'm sorry for not listening. I wish I would have known that you were trying to protect me. That is amazing. We're going to kind of circle back to that one at the end. That's one of the ones we'll circle back to. Here's one that says, if there was one thing I could tell my parent or guardian, it would be that I had thoughts about committing suicide because of the situations that I have been in throughout my life that affected my emotions. We'll circle back to that one too.
Definitely, definitely.
Oh my God, I needed to feel your love.
Wow.
At times, I wish you heard me before you judged me. Mom and Dad, I'm struggling with my sexuality and sometimes I feel alone and suicidal. Okay. I don't want the same things in life that you seem to want me to do and have. That's powerful. We'll get to that in a minute too. There's a lot to unpack here. I would tell my dad that I wish he were more understanding towards my feelings and more patient with me. I would tell my parents I didn't understand how hard you worked to provide for us. Yep. I'm kind of nervous to tell my parent how I feel when she treats me differently from my little sister. And I talk to my mom about everything. Ma, I love you so much, but who I love does not mean I don't still love and respect you. It is my life, and I would love it if you continue to support me through it.
Wow, good stuff. I'm gonna add one. I have one that was direct message to me. They want to remain anonymous. But Tristan, of course, it's gonna be a good one for you. So you get ready. Not this particular one, but this question here is much deeper than I thought it was gonna be. So we got another one just came in, Travis. But I'm gonna read this one while we wait on a few people to come in. This one says, I would say to my dad that you messed me up emotionally and physically. I want your love and I would never hold anything against you. Yes, you hurt me, but you still are the reason I am here. I wish you could have made different choices. Wow.
How about, I don't like it when you think you know what's best for me. Sometimes I know what I want and where I want to be. Tristan, there's a lot to unpack here. Where do you want to start?
Oh, okay. I think I would love to start with, because I think there are two.
Can you hear me?
Yes, two statements that were made that discuss suicide.
Okay. Yeah.
So I would definitely like to start with those two.
Well, go ahead and jump on. And I think the first one, I'll read this first one. It said, if there was one thing, and it's on the left, If there was
Mhm.
one thing I could tell my parents or guardian, it would be that I had thoughts about committing suicide because of situations that I have been in throughout my life and that have affected my emotions. You want me to pause there, or you want me to read this other one too?
You can read the other one too.
The second one reads, Mom and Dad, I'm struggling with my sexuality, and sometimes I feel alone and suicidal.
So those are very, very powerful statements. Suicide in general is definitely something that is very prevalent. There's certain communities that are affected a little bit more than others, but again, a lot of people struggle with suicide, and it's something that people struggle with a lot of times silently. People are either afraid to talk about it because they feel like, oh, people are going to look at me like I'm crazy, or, you know, they're going to try to like send me to the hospital. Things like that might be an issue or a worry. Sometimes they feel like people won't understand why they feel that way. You know, and a lot of times that fear that surrounds speaking upon suicide definitely shouldn't be there. That stigma that exists around any type of mental health issues that is so prevalent, especially when looking to in different communities racially, like even in the Black community specifically, mental health is not a big thing that is discussed, it's not talked about, it's stigmatized, and it's something that needs to stop. Again, we all have mental health. Mental health is just like physical health. We all have it. And it's something that we shouldn't be afraid to talk about. But again, we shouldn't be afraid to talk about it, but we also need to have safe spaces where we can talk about it and it can be received in a way where people don't judge you and don't look down on you or feel like, oh, you're crazy and saying things like that. Because again, I know that that's something that is a reality and it does happen. But, you know, I think when having these suicidal ideations or thoughts, you know, it's really important to seek resources and help. And again, sometimes our family, even though sometimes we may think like family should be the safest space, sometimes it's not. And that's the reality of things. Sometimes we do need to seek other resources. We need to be able to know what's out there in our communities, to be able to talk to other people, whether it's a therapist, whether it's a counselor, whether it's like any hotlines, which are various hotlines for suicide prevention. If you're dealing with any type of negative emotions that are creating that for you, there are tons of resources out there. If you do not feel like your home is a safe space to talk about those things. So I definitely don't want anyone who is having any suicidal thoughts to feel like they are alone or feel like they don't have anybody to go to, because trust me, you do. There are resources. If you don't know them, reach out, Google, trust me, it's tons online that you can go to. And I mean, I don't want to have anybody, share if those were either of their statements. You know, if you don't feel comfortable, that's perfectly understandable. But again, I want whoever wrote those to know that there are resources. If you do not feel comfortable speaking to your family and that's not a safe space, please reach out. I can even give you resources after this if you need that. You know, definitely reach out, and I'll give my email and all of that information, because you do have people that care. You do have people that are there that can help you.
Yeah, yes, and it's suicidal thoughts is really deep. And I know there's a couple of people that actually said it and were strong enough to put it out here, but I'm pretty sure there are several people on this call, I for one, that have contemplated, just kind of ending it all. The stresses of life, it gets to you. And if you don't know how to deal with stuff, sometimes that's the only recourse that you can see. I tell people all the time.
Can you join us?
Huh? Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, sorry about that. So yeah, I tell people all the time that, especially people that I'm very, very close to, and they've seen the change in me over the past few years. And I'll say some of the things that I was doing when I was younger it was emotional immaturity. Like I didn't understand how to control my emotions, and, even some of the physical things that I did to people, it was one of those things where you hurt me. I didn't know any other way to hurt you, but physically, but you live and you learn, hopefully. I was lucky enough to not, get in a situation where I was killed or put in jail or something like that. A lot of people can't tell the story. But full transparency on my end, you know, there was a lot of mental health issues that I had to deal with because there was a lot of things that I've been a part of, whether willingly or unwillingly. I was in the midst of things that, you know, could have been a detriment to the detriment or demise of anybody else. So there's been a time or two that I was like, you know what, it can't get no worse than this. So let me just do what I got to do. But you know, my faith kind of kept me close to where I needed to be, and you know, having supportive people. God send you, and I don't want to really jump into the religion thing, but God send you who you need when you need them. And there's situations places I've been, even being here in Maryland, I had no idea I was going to be here, but he puts you where you need to be so you can help maintain your sanity and get you where you need to go. So yeah, I applaud any individual that's vulnerable enough to kind of step out there and talk about suicidal issues or even issues with family members and not being accepted. You know, these are things that it's not exclusive to you, Tristan. I know you can attest to this. And I'm sure you hear it all the time. It's not exclusive to anyone on here. We've all had the gamut of emotions and experiences. So anybody else want to chime in? There was a few more that came in, Travis. I'm going to read them. Hopefully if I miss yours, just kind of let me know. You can read it if you want, or just let me know in the chat. But I see this one that says, I feel so much pressure to make good grades while doing after school activities and come home to take care of my siblings. It's really tiring, but it also the least I guess that means the least that I can do for my parents. I understand that 10 years, they're hard, especially if you're an older sibling. You become the person that does the homework, that does the cooking, that's keeping the kids when mom and dad wants to go out. So I can totally understand that. I'm not sure if this is a new one, but I didn't see it before. At times, I wish you heard me before you judge me. If I'm rereading that, please forgive me. I think this is a new one here. I wish I could tell my dad before he passes that I'm sorry for everything and I love and appreciate you. Wow. And that's a reality, because not only are we dealing with our stuff, we're dealing with people that they're losing their lives. They're leaving this earth. And, you know, if we don't say what we need to say to them prior to them leaving, that's something that we carry. That's something that we carry for a long time. And I know I'm doing a lot of talking, but this really hit me. I've had a lot of people, most of the most meaningful people that were a part of me being raised and, you know, me being the man that I am are gone now. And that's a difficult path to kind of take, because when you're looking around and you're looking for that strength, or you're looking for that backbone and there's no one there but you, that can be very difficult. So whoever wrote that they hope they can tell their dad before they passes, if there's nothing hindering you from doing that on your own, go ahead out there and do it, because the worst thing you want to do is live with that on your conscience, and not letting the people you love know how much you love them. So jump out there.
And can I chime in with for a second on that one, Mr. Russell?
Yes.
Just whoever put that particular post up there, I wanted to 1,000 times just piggyback on that and back Mr. Russell up with that. I would just be very vulnerable and very transparent. My father and I, towards the end of his life, we had a very, very, very tumultuous relationship, and sometimes very hostile. And the last conversation that I ever had with my dad was the worst fight that we ever had. And he said some horrible things to me. And because I'm realizing now that I was just like my dad, I gave it as well as I got it. So we said horrible words to each other. And, you know, I got a chance to think about it. And, you know, like Mr. Russell was talking about, I hear a few of you talk about your faith, and my faith was very strong. And I really, you know, felt as if the Lord was saying, okay, you did all that. Now you have to go and ask his forgiveness. And I was like, I don't feel like I need to ask him for his forgiveness. Well, you need to forgive him. And I was like, oh my God, why do I have to be the bigger person? But I forgave him. I forgave my father and reached out to him, couldn't catch up with him. And then before I got a chance to catch up with my father, he died. The only thing that saved me from being overwhelmed with guilt was the fact that I forgave him. And the fact that I knew in my heart that I made an effort to reach out to him. To apologize, hard as it was. So if you have a parent, parents are not perfect. Whether we're real parents or whether we're surrogate parents, we're growing, we're human, and we may do things that affect you very deeply in a negative way. It's hard, and forgiveness is not a one-shot deal. You have to do it every day, sometimes over and over again, but do it. Make an effort to do it. It takes such a weight off of you. I cannot tell you what my life would have been like had my father passed and I not forgiven him. And, I was angry at him for a lot of things, for not being around and things of that nature, but it didn't matter because, that's something that I had to carry. And, with him being gone and me thinking about him, I realized that my father, he was a man who went through different things. With him being a Black man who was older, there were probably a lot of things that he just didn't speak on because it was painful and he had to grin and bear it. But the important thing is that whatever you're angry at your parents about, forgive them.
Yep.
And if you need help talking through that, work with somebody and talk through that, right? And look at what forgiveness looks like. And the second thing is, if you want to tell him that you love him, and if you want to tell him how you feel about him, do it now.
Yeah. Don't let it hold up. And I'm going to pick out Marissa. I see your hand up. I'm going to get to you. I'm going to read Leah. I'm going to read your comment in the comments too, but I want to just kind of piggyback on Travis because not a lot of people know this about me, but I didn't have a relationship. I didn't have a bad relationship. I just didn't have a relationship with my dad, and I didn't know why. My mom never talked down on him. There was nothing like that. We just didn't have a relationship. And anybody that know me for real, especially when I was a little bit younger, you would call, I'm petty. I'm one of them guys where, it can be the smallest little thing. And I'm like, I'm done. I can't deal with this. But the story, what you made me think, what you conjured up in me, Travis, was in my early 20s, my dad passed away when I was 21, I believe. And we had kind of started rekindling and, we had been 3-4 months kind of talking. I was in Florida, he was in Jersey. And one little thing kind of set me off and I was like, you know what, I'm not going to deal with this. But then I did that forgiveness thing, just like you did, Travis. Thank God I did. But the tragedy of it is while I was in that forgiveness stage, doing the same thing you did, I was planning a trip to actually go visit him on his birthday. And he died 10 days before his birthday. So I never had a chance to even travel to spend that time with him. So again, picking back off of, the love, if you have that love for someone and you want them to know that, don't waste another minute or another day. Let them know by whatever means you can, even if it's a quick text to say, hey, Dad, I want to talk to you a little bit more, but for now, this is how I feel, and we'll get back around to it. But I want to read Leah's information here on the chat. She said, I agree with the good grades. I always have so much anxiety when it comes to me keeping my grades up because I know I'm about to go to high school next year and these grades are going to stick with me through high school. Absolutely. Absolutely. Good observation. Marissa, your hands up. I'm sorry for your wait.
It's fine. I basically wanted to jump on here and just say that was me that said what did about my dad. I wish I would tell him that I love him. I'm sorry for everything. I misspelled pass. I meant passed, like in past tense, like he passed already.
Okay.
So it's like I can agree to both you, Mr. Travis and Mr. Xavier. I wish I did have the opportunity to tell him I'm sorry for a lot of things because Mr. Z, like you, well, Mr. Travis, one of y'all, you said your father wasn't really there for you. He wasn't in your life. My father wasn't there for me I'm 15. He wasn't there for me for 13 years of my life. But then he came around and we got a bond and it grew stronger. But I allowed my pride to get in the way. And I said, I don't want to bond with you no more, sir, because you wasn't there for me before. So why would I allow you in now? That's probably one of the biggest things I regret telling my father, because he was trying. He came in my life, checked on me every day. Hey, Rissa, how you doing? Just want to tell you I love you. I hope we can really sit down and have a conversation about everything. Like, he was trying, but because I was like, you wasn't there in the beginning, so why would I let you in now? I let my pride take over. I regret not giving him a chance. And when I find, like Mr. Russell, like you said, you was in the stage of forgiveness. I was trying to forgive him. And around May of last year, he got sick with colon cancer. And it was bad, but we thought it was going to get better. So me and my dad started talking more. We started getting closer. He started learning things about me. I came out to him. It was really good. He accepted me. He loved me for me. I stayed over his house with my siblings. It was always us. September came, he passed away. And it broke us. It did. And so I regret on a daily not telling him I'm sorry, telling him I love him. I regret it every day, and he stay on my mind. So it's like, yeah. I say to anybody, if you got some bad judgment on your parents or anybody, friends, family, loved ones, if you have a bad feeling about them, don't let your pride take over. Speak your truth. That's why we're here. Speak your truth. Allow your voice to be heard. Say what you have to say. It may come off disrespectful, but at least you got your words out. Allow what you have in your heart to be said. Don't allow somebody to pass and you constantly regret it every day that you was not able to say, or even ask questions that you wanted to be asked. Don't let a day go by that you can't ask, because it may come to a day real soon that you won't be able to ask them ever.
15 years old. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Mr. Russell.
Go ahead.
Marissa, can I say this to you? This is Ms. Lofton.
Ms. Lofton, you in my head because I was going to call you.
Let me say this.
Wow.
And Marissa, you take yourself off of mute.
Yes, ma'am.
Sweetheart, this is what I want you to do tonight.
Okay.
Because I think some people believe in angels and some people don't. And your father is probably in that room or that space with you. What I want you to do tonight, sit down and find you a quiet space. And you pour your heart out to your father because he can hear you. Because best to believe, if he knows something is going to happen to you, he'll be the first one to intercede and ask God to intercede on your behalf for your life. So that's what I need you to do, because he hears you, sweetheart. He hears you. And he's right there. See, the best thing about that is when people are in the physical body, they're only allowed to go so far. But being in the spiritual realm, they can check on all of their loved ones and protect them better in the spiritual realm. And that's what I need you to understand. Your father has not left you. He's there right beside you. So tell him what you want him to know, because 9 times out of 10, he probably already knows it and can feel it. So say it.
Yes, ma'am. I'll do that right as soon as we get off this call. Yes, ma'am.
Wow, Miss Chanel, powerful. You almost drove me to tears. I'm trying to be strong over here. While we talking, I don't know if y'all can see this board filling up, so I'm not even going to try to venture to see where the new ones are. Janae, look like you're trying to organize them. If you can, could you just read the ones that's new, or some kind of way highlight them so we can see them?
Yeah, so the first one here, it says, why is it so hard for you to give me an apology? when you actually do something wrong to me or hurt my feelings. Another one that came in is, I know you love and want to protect me always, but sometimes I have to make my own mistakes and learn for myself. It hurts that you don't trust me enough to make the best decisions in the end. Another one, Dad, I'm sorry for taking so long to give you a chance. Though sometimes it hurts that you weren't there for me, but I know you're trying, and so am I.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Good stuff. And I'm just gonna be straight up and down, straight pants, transparent. I didn't have any idea this particular question was going to get this deep, but I'm glad we were able to kind of articulate this and people share our feelings, and the door isn't closed. So anybody else that want to kind of verbalize what they're feeling and what they wrote here, feel free to jump on right now. We're not going to rush through this at all. But if
I
you
think
guys,
Kayla said something in the chat.
all right.
Kayla said, I know that recently my aunt died this summer. I regret not telling her that I love her. I was really nervous to talk to her because I thought she would never be the same again. I feel like I should have been there for her more than I was then.
Yeah. Yeah. And Ms. Malone, I mean, this is what it's all about. We're talking about communication. We're talking about best ways to communicate. And I'm pretty sure a lot of things weren't said because they didn't know how to communicate that. You know, no matter what the feelings or the emotions were, you know, it's just difficult to kind of reach within and make yourself vulnerable to these things. So I see a couple of hands up. It looks like we have, whose hand was up? If your hand was up, go ahead and jump in.
Yeah, Mr. Russell, I wrote the last one, and to verbalize it, it's just that my dad, he was there for me a lot, but not exactly when I needed him. My stepdad was, and I just want to say, verbalize to him that I'm sorry it took me so long to give you a chance, though sometimes it hurts thinking back of the time that you were there for me. But also, I'm really happy. I'm sorry, that's my sister. But also, I'm really happy that you were there for me when I think I needed you the most, but didn't realize.
That's strong. That's strong. Thanks for sharing. That was DJ, right? Thanks for sharing. Appreciate that. Anybody else want to chime in? We're at 8:48. We was anticipating being done at 8:30. By no means am I rushing this. As long as the conversation is good, I'm on here.
I think Shakayla has her hand raised.
Okay, Shakayla, go ahead. I can't see it, so Shakayla, go ahead.
So mine was, I'm sorry for not listening. I wish I would have known that you were trying to protect me. So before I moved to Virginia, I used to live with my mom in DC. And so we had a real bad communication problem. Like, I was really stubborn. Everything that she told me to do, I was not doing. I'm not even gonna sit right here and lie. It was more as though it was on my factor more than hers. I wasn't listening. I wasn't doing the things that she asked me to do, such as like clean up, watch my siblings, go from A to B, and etc. I used to go do what I wanted to do as if I was grown. But like going out into the world and, doing these things, I wasn't paying attention to, the outside area, how dangerous it was, that I could get kidnapped, or this could have happened, or that could have happened. But it would have been no explanation. It would have just been like, oh, you weren't watching her. But in reality, it was me not caring, just me not listening at all. So if I was to talk to my mom, which I do a lot now, we talk more. We have a better communication instead of arguing all the time. We always talk. I always apologize to her. Like every time I see her, when I go visit DC, I always apologize to her, because she was protecting me from what was outside. Because when I got out there, I was, really hurt. I didn't know what was going on out in the world. So I apologize to her. And I would like to say, like, to any, youth or anybody that's having trouble, communicate with their parent, or they don't want to listen because their mom don't let them out that much. It's not that she's not trying to let you out. It's that she's trying to protect you what's out there. because there's so much that goes on in the world that we don't see because we don't watch news. We just, most of the time we on social media. And most of that stuff's not projected on social media. So I would just say, like, you know, take the time that you have with your parents and, you know, try to listen to them. I know it may be hard that you don't get out or you don't get to do these things with your friends, but you'll get the chance to.
Yeah. And if y'all don't see yet, I think you see now why I grab these kids up. We talking, these are 14, 15, 16-year-old kids, young people, youth. And, you know, they're able to articulate and express themselves in a way that a lot of adults can't. So I commend you guys on what you guys are doing. This is a first step to a long journey with many, many endeavors that's going to be very exciting and I think lucrative for you guys. Kayla, did we read yours? I see you in the chat. Did we read yours yet? I'm sorry. Did I miss that? I think we read yours already. If not, I'll read it again, just for me. I know that recently my aunt died this summer. I regret not telling her that I love her. I was really nervous to talk to her because I thought she would never be the same again. I feel like I should have been there for her more than I was. So those are real feelings, real feelings. All right, thank you so much for sharing. So I want to be, this is a great conversation. I can do this all night, but I got to be respectful of people's time. You spent a couple of hours with us so far. So Ajane, I wasn't going to go here, but let's cue up that last Jamboard and we'll get you out of here. I promise you we'll get you out of here by 9 o'clock. If you wish to stay for longer than that, feel free. But by 9 o'clock, I'm going to try to get you out of here. But I think it's important for us to at least finish this last one. And it was supposed to be 2 for the adults and 2 for our youth, but go ahead, click on that new Jamboard and you'll see this last one. And it's basically just a debrief and a closeout of what we learned today. And even though it says youth on page 1, anybody can jump in, adults can jump in, our youth can jump in, anybody wants to jump in, but we have 3 columns here. The first saying, what stood out most for you? The next one, what did you agree with? And then the next one, what did you disagree with? But to be honest with you, if we go to the second page, if you slide to page 2, I'm really more interested in this one. You know, based on what you've learned and heard today, what can you do to achieve better communication with your child and or parent? We're just going to use these 2 Jamboards. So feel free to jump in there. We have about 7 minutes before we wrap everything up. But if you have any final thoughts that you want to share, and just so you know, these Jamboards are recorded, not just video recording, but I'm actually going to save these and everybody that participated will send it out so you can be a visual for you and you can understand and kind of look back on that conversation that we had today. So feel free to jump in on that Jamboard. Just use page 1 and 2. Even though it says adults, our young people, you can drop it in there as well. That's just as well.
Can you put that link in the chat again for me?
Ajane, can you drop that in there? There you go, Trap. And while you're doing that, I'm going to just use this time to say thank you for spending this evening with us. Our kids, they were nervous leading up to this call today. We were prepping for this, and it was like, "Oh, I'm so nervous. I don't know what to say." I'm like, "Nah." Once you get into it, it's just a conversation. You know, it's just being open and being able to communicate and do the same thing that you do with us all the time. So I think they did a wonderful job. So if you have space to do a little clap or snap your fingers, please do that for this team. They did a great job. I'm very proud. And we got this one under our belt. And we just moving forward now to bigger and better things. I see Miss Christina put a heart in there. Yeah, give us some love. Give us a little emoji, what they call it? Reactions. Give us some reactions while we wait on people to put this in. And I'm gonna do a slight little plug. So we try to have these at least once a month. We took the summer off, but we're back at it. And our next one's gonna be November 18th, which is a Thursday. And that's gonna be on civic engagement, the importance of civic engagement, your commitment to your community. We have a young lady by the name of Tia Turner who's based out of Alabama, who's going to be with us to spend some time. And we may have another guest that leads a organization that does volunteer work within the DC and I think it's DC, New York, Maryland area. So it's going to be huge, especially our young people, you know, with school coming up. You're in high school and you're going to college, you got to have those hours. You got to understand how meaningful and impactful it is to support your community and to volunteer. So learn more about those opportunities on November 18th. Before we leave here today, I'm going to give you a QR code that you'll be able to scan. If you want to register today, you can go ahead and do that today. So Ajane, I'm looking at your screen. Can you go back to page 1 and see how many folks we got on there? Okay, it's filling up pretty good. Good stuff. We'll give you, it's 8:56 now. Once it hit 8:57, we'll just kind of read these back. No need to chime in unless you absolutely want to, but if you have to drop off at 9, we understand. We appreciate you spending your time with us. But if you want to stay a bit longer and discuss these, feel free to do that as well. I'm here as long as you are.
Oh, and just to remind you to everyone in Chicago, 9 o'clock for everyone else is 8 o'clock for us. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
We may get a little confused, Mr. Russell.
Yeah, now I don't want to confuse nobody because 9 o'clock for y'all is 10 o'clock for me. And there will be no confusion with that. Kayla, I didn't mean to confuse you. All right, so as they're coming in, we're going to read what stood out for you most. The first one, the warmth and the love. I'm loving it. I love it. That's what it's all about. One of our platforms is youth expression, and that's what it's all about. Some people, adults and otherwise, they don't get the love. Travis, if you remember over the summer, we did our first time we did a jam board, we did a gratitude. We used to do a gratitude Thursday. And it was very similar to this, where people just anonymously just put their stuff up and what they were thankful about. And people were so thankful for just the camaraderie and just the conversations we were having. And so right after that, we did what we call we bombed the chat, where everybody just said the first word that came to them of how that experience was. And 80% of the people, the word they used was they felt loved. They felt love. And that's one of those things where, you know, you can't quantify it. And you don't know when it's deficient until you actually get it. So to be able to have an organization and work with people that give it day to day, I can't say enough about that. The transparency is what stood out most. The communication that went down today stood out very good. The emotional intelligence of the youth is beautiful. Absolutely, absolutely. The safe space was appreciated. Everyone was very understanding and welcome when people were sharing things that may not have been comfortable with. Very good. Absolutely. That's the space we're creating. I'm just overwhelmed with the openness, sensitivity, and maturity that was shared tonight. Absolutely. So we're going to go over here to the things you agree with. Everything was amazing. One person says, respect is equal for both children and adults, our youth and adults. So that's great. Happy to see that it's not much or anything in what I don't agree with, so what I disagree with. So I'm happy to see that. Let's see, did I miss anything over here? What stood out most? If I did, charge it to my eyes, not my heart. So, Ajane, can you go to the second page for me? Let's see what we have here. So what are we going to do going forward to achieve better? Thank you for making that bigger. Better communication, understand my mom's points of view, my mom's point of view. Perfect. Allow them into my life. I'm assuming that's a young person allowing their parents or adults into their life. Communicate better with my mom, express that I value my child's perspective more. Happy to hear that. I believe if I continue to walk through this high school journey with my son, our communication will be awesome. Happy to hear that. Please walk through the journey. Like we said earlier, it's about growth. You guys are growing together. You're growing together. Even if you have more than one child, each child is different. and their journey is different. And your journey with their path is different, and your journey with them is totally different. Hearing the stories the young people shared, I've learned that it's important to remain engaged with our children in order to create a safe space for meaningful communication and strong relationships. Absolutely. And this is the platform for it. So I couldn't say it enough at the top. This is what we're all about. We want a place where our youth are comfortable to express themselves and be where they are and who they are. It's not a lot of places that allow that. A lot of adults, especially when adults are in the room, they want to chastise and they want to, belittle and look down on our youth. And what that does, it repels them and pushes them away. But this is a space where they know they can be who they are and say what they mean and what they feel. So this has been wonderful for me. I really appreciate it. If I missed what you were saying here, again,